Welcome back to Curious Comedy, a podcast made to inform and entertain, to enjoy and wreck your brain. Oh, and our name? I'm Tom.
I'm Jala.
And this is Curious Comedy. Let's get into it.
Yes, welcome back all. So, I wanted to say that this week we also got a special episode, but I have a feeling that we are saying that almost every week since a couple of weeks, so maybe that is not the best start. But this episode is a little bit different than otherwise, because normally Tom has also a view on the topics we are going to discuss. And for this week, I thought it would be nice to that you maybe don't prepare yourself, because then it would be, how you say it, a more pure answer, or more, maybe not well thought, but then you can just speak your mind. Sure. And I think for the subject that we, or maybe I wanted to discuss with you this week, it could be beneficial to do so, and that maybe in a couple of, in the future episodes we can do it differently, and if you like it, you can prepare them, right?
Great. So I'm fully unprepared here. Just, for everybody's information, I might be struggling a lot here. So if you're wondering why I'm not so fluent in my tongue, there's your answer.
Great. But then it's more of a level playing field, right?
Sure.
Maybe that is the true.
I finally found your true motive. Damn, it didn't even take you 2 minutes.
No. Yeah, I'm too open for this, right? It doesn't. Doesn't work. No.
I guess the criminal life was not your the direction you should have gone.
No, and I think my parents are very happy with that, and myself too. So okay. 2 things, but I will. I just dropped the text in the drive, so now you can see it. But don't read too much, because I will take you with me.
Great.
And I first wanted to talk a little bit about the emotions of the market. And like we have discussed in one of our first episodes, you are or you were. We will find out soon. A crypto investor, so you are part of the investment community. And so what we have seen the last couple of weeks is, especially since November, October, we had like a peak and a lot of different assets, and one of them was bonds, but which the yields are deteriorating, which has some financial consequences which could be quite big, but that is for future episode. But we could see like crypto going down. We could see like the Dutch central bank warned today that this year and next year housing prices will fall with an average of 3% each year. So that is still around 15,000 euros on an average house that will disappear. It's not that much, given that an average price is about around 300,000, but still. So we see some corrections. And you can relate that also to your own holdings of crypto, but especially in relation to the topic of today, like emotions of markets, I thought it would be interesting to maybe focus and zoom in not too much, but just a little on Tesla as a prime example. Because we have seen that a lot of markets, a couple of different asset classes, in general have deteriorated, but that also in a world where we are talking about an energy crisis, when we are talking about sustainability, when we're talking about climate change, that a company which is like doing the most it can, and the most compared to the most of the other companies in the world, is getting as well a big cut of almost 70%. So let's just say 50%. But Tesla was like $1,000 billion company, and now is around less than 500. So I was just curious about your opinion, not about, so maybe in general the devaluation or the deterioration of a financial market and different asset class, but in specifically, could you relate that to maybe how you view Tesla as a prime example, given the energy crisis and the global warming, all those topics?
Yeah, so this is an easy one to answer. That's a joke. No, okay, so yeah, first let's start off with my personal experience, I guess. So yeah, I thought it would be wise to invest in crypto just a little bit. It was money that I thought I could miss. I miss it more now. So yeah, no, it's not been terribly good. You could describe it as that. I mean, at first I was like, it was relatively safe, relatively stable. You had your peaks and dives here and there, but it's gone downhill significantly. And now I think you hear the word recession, or we're going into an economic depression. I think you've
First recession.
Recession. Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that. So I've heard it a bunch, and I don't know whether to believe it's true, but I know that that everything is getting real expensive, and that it's hard to pay for anything, and that I was hoping that my crypto would prevent that from happening, but it has been dragged along with everything, so that's not been ideal. But who knows, hey? A man can dream. Perhaps it will bounce back like nothing before. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time crypto's done it, so there's still a little bit of hope left within me. But then you also have other banks going for centralized digital currencies, so more competition. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, right? If you take, for example, Tesla, that will say competition is a good thing because it drives them to be better, or it gives them a comparison to what they are competing with and give them more ideas, or yeah, you get my point, right? So perhaps that would be a good thing for crypto. Perhaps it could just make crypto irrelevant, as it is now. But that's another thing entirely. When I take into consideration Tesla, yeah. So you said they were at $1,000 billion valuation.
1.2. Yeah, it depends on the currency, because like the euro to the dollar, has changed a lot the past 2 years. So that is a 20% difference in valuation. But just hold 1 billion, 1,000 billion, so trillion, but it was 1.2 trillion US dollars.
Okay,
But,
and
yeah.
could you tell me when that was, and what it's now been around half?
Yeah.
So what's the approximate time span of that happening?
Yeah, almost 6 months. I will
6 months. Wow.
I will double check it. So right now, 6 months, you got 40%. If we take a year, we see, a year is 50%.
Okay, so about a year.
Yeah, but less than a year was 60%. So
Yeah, okay.
62. So just say 6 months. September, and in September it really deteriorated. But you can say just the half past year.
Yeah. So
2022.
to me, it's quite worrying because, like many companies, but especially Tesla, I like to think of it as, it can definitely have at times where it doesn't do as good, or where it's doing fantastically well, and that's all fine. But you would think that a company completely focused on the trend that everybody seems to be on, which is we have to fight global warming, we have to make more sustainable vehicles, we have to go into that direction where we don't kill our planet because we will take ourselves along with it. You would think that company, which is incredibly successful now, you would think it would only be going up, or at least be in a stable position. So to me, that is quite a worrying figure to think about. And it's hard for me to grasp why that would be exactly. Because I haven't seen anything or noticed anything which would cause such an irregularity, except for that everything is just down in the dumps right now.
Yeah.
But do you have like a theory or an idea on why that is?
Yeah, I do. But I must say that I quite like your I'm searching for the English word. But it's like your describing of events. Yeah, sorry, I cannot always find the right word, right? But ask me that question in a bit, because I want to answer you, but I first want to take a different path with you.
Okay.
And then we come back.
Sure.
Because I think it's a great question, and it is, I think, to say so, even an introduction to my follow-up question.
Great. I haven't seen it yet.
Which would be, and I know that it's not your field of expertise, so no worries. But just your general opinion. Do you think that markets are functioning well, in general?
It's a broad question.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, it's of course, as you said, I'm by no means an expert on this, so please take it with like a kilogram of salt what I'm about to say. But yeah, to me it does not seem very very stable.
Why
as
not?
it is. No, because
stable or
functional.
Okay.
I should rather say, but not stable either. But
okay.
Functional is what I will be focusing on. Well, because when I think of a country. Let's just say the Netherlands, because it's easy for me because I can speak from personal experience. I would think that functional markets and a system that is working properly would make it so that the most basic common necessities which everybody needs would be at as cheap as affordable pricing, like housing would be mostly taken care of, healthcare would be relatively cheap, of course, as healthcare. Doctors need to get paid a decent salary because they do a very difficult job. So, of course, education would be handled quite well. And your simple groceries, I'm not talking about your caviar and your blue tuna, your bluefin tuna, but I'm talking about your pork chops and your chicken breast, right? So, I think that should be at a relatively low price, especially since that you would think that the entire country is more educated than ever and we have more incredibly high functioning people in our society than ever. So I would think that if the money is going to the right places and the priorities are set right for the maximum goodness of the common man in our country, it would not be in a place where we have to pay outrageous amounts of money for some chicken right now. I think that gives me an indication that something is wrong, and perhaps I'm overlooking a bunch of things, and I probably am. But just in simple terms, I would think, why isn't it getting better? Why is it getting worse? And that is something I still can't wrap my head around. And I certainly don't want to blame the elite and say they're all making us suffer and they are ruining the working class to benefit themselves. I'm sure it's some of them, and it's true to a degree, but I'm thinking there's something wrong, right? It shouldn't be that this is a trend that is happening.
Yeah. Okay. So you would say then, and you almost take like a helicopter view and say, okay, when we look at our economy as a whole, as a part of history. So when we look in centuries or then you could ask, okay, how is it possible that we see such an increase in prices of goods that we want and need to consume every day?
Yeah,
right. That's the point you're making. Okay, that's fair. Okay, and despite from like the traditional market, because you can say that like food is just as grain is the same maybe as any other good, right? There's just a market for it, and the price depends on demand and supply. And that is also like, I think, partly an answer to your question why some things could be more expensive. When there's a war between Ukraine and Russia, then the chicken we are normally importing from Ukraine will become more expensive. The same is true for like the sunflower oil.
Yeah,
and you saw that. So that is like the consequence. But okay, I still think it's like a fair assessment, right? But I think that is just a temporary shock that you see. If you zoom out again, then I think you would agree. Otherwise, I'm very curious that we are richer than we ever were, right? So the maybe our chicken breast is indeed becoming more expensive, but if you look at how much, what the percentage of your income, what percentage of your income is going to groceries, then it's less than 30%. Which means that if you would just say, okay, you have your income, and we say like, okay, you have to buy the basics, which is just your electricity, your housing, so your rent, and food, and maybe the basics of clothes. That is what you need. And then as your dispensable income is everything you have as a sort of a leftover that you can that you can really spend freely. Which is then the definition of wealth, right? How much can you spend freely? Because everyone needs to have the basics. Then we would define ourselves as super rich, right? Because there has never been a situation in which we had more choices or that the prices were so cheap. Although the chicken breast price is increasing, it's still the quality is better and the price you're paying is less.
Sure. So if you, for example, if you if you go in further, if you go 100 years ago, it's no question, right? We got it so much better.
But also for 10 or 20 years.
Yeah. So I'm not exactly sure on when that flip comes, but I think median income around 10 years maybe you would have had it better off, but I'm not sure about that. That's pure speculation.
In general, prices are decreasing. So if you just look at, okay, what do you pay for grain, what do you pay for the most supplies, then the prices are decreasing in general. That is just what is happening. So if you look at, okay, how much does it cost to ship something from here to China or to the other side of the world, whatever, how much does it cost to transport myself? So a train ticket to a plane ticket to, there's never been a time in which it was cheaper to go to the other side of the world than it is right now.
Okay.
And the same is true for a car. How much if you look at your annual income and okay, how much years do you need to work to pay like a super good car? It's super cheap relatively to 30 years ago.
Okay. No, I hear you in that regard, and I agree with you. However, for example, when it comes to, I think you mentioned it today in private conversation, is the price of vegetables that have gone up, especially in specific stores, of course, because you have more quote unquote quality stores that would sell it for a higher price, but it's also we as the Netherlands are like a country that makes an incredible amount of produce in our country. We grow like tons of food, yet we sell a lot of it and get a good bit of profit from it. But in our grocery stores, it is highly marketed up, and you see as well with, for example, energy companies are having record-breaking profits. And same thing is happening in the UK. It's very similar to what is happening here, and that to me shows a distortion in the idea that everybody's struggling right now. Everybody's having it quite tough. We're all in this period where we just have to scrape our money together because it's tough for everybody. However, I think this was also brought into the second chamber, into our political system, or was brought up that a large part of this inflation that we're talking about is self-induced.
Yeah, sure.
It's because profits are in an all-time high. You would think, well, if everybody's suffering, that energy companies have to market up their prices because otherwise they're losing money. Yeah, but how come then you're making more profits than you were last year? Then something's not adding up, right? So by that token, I would say that in the fact that there is so much ability to manipulate the market, perhaps then the market is not set up properly.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is that if you're able to charge an overtly large amount of money for a product that you could sell a lot cheaper with relative ease, that is a basic necessity for human beings, then I would say, okay, how are you able to do that? when you know, for example, in Britain, I know that there's literally elderly people that are unable to heat their homes because of the cost and are, as a consequence, dying. Which is, of course, is very sad news. Don't mean to bum everybody out, but it is the truth of what's happening. Which shows to me that there is just a disconnect for the humanity of it almost. And it's using this idea of, okay, we're in a recession. Everybody's having to cut back. Something fishy is going on, right? And then my thought would be, okay, well, if they have that power, would it be wise to say, okay, we need to alter their ability to influence it so much?
Okay. No, I got you. But I will reply on this one. Wasn't really planned, but let's do it, because I agree that it is a topic that is that it's keeping a lot of different people busy. Okay. I'm not saying I have the answer how you should solve this. What I can do is explain what the dynamics are.
Please do. And I would love to be educated.
But then you can see and understand why because the way you describe it, and I know you, so I know you don't do it on purpose, but maybe it's also explainable, not justifiable, but I can see where you're coming from, to see almost as certain choices are binary, right? So the glass is half full or half empty, and a lot of things, especially when there are products produced on a mass scale where a lot of profits are being made, but also is seen as a commodity, as a necessity. We're talking about energy. Then the glass is never full, half full or half empty. Things are not binary. Why? Because there are too many parties which have some interests, and therefore there could also be a conflict of interest. And I'm not saying I know in what way, shape, or form that is happening, but you could imagine that the more parties are involved that have their interest to protect, the more nuanced the solution will be. Because if you want to find common ground between all those parties, then a binary solution will always make some party worse off, and therefore they will protect their stake and say this is not what's going to happen. So the more, you got it, right? So in that sense, it cannot be as simple as that. So what is truly happening is that indeed we have an energy crisis, and so you have a lot of big energy companies. If we be honest, there are just a couple or just a few in the world that are producing almost all energy. Then we talk about an ExxonMobil, then we talk about a Shell, we talk about a BP. I got a few others, but those are like the big ones, especially in the Western world. And what is happening is that the past. So let's go back to 2020. We are in the preset of a pandemic, which we then do not yet know what the scope of this will be. But what we do know is that there could be there is a serious indication that the economy will just stop. So we will just say, okay, we are going in lockdown, which means that from one way to the other, there is half of the energy is needed, if it's not more. And we are talking about billions of dollars. So as you can see, and you can look that up, you can see that those big companies have made in around the quarters Q4 2019, Q1 through Q4 2020, and then beginning Q1, Q2, this for the first 2 quarters of 2021, you can see that they made billions of losses, which should be super logic, because you have bought and thought that the economy would proceed as it always had, and then this thing happened, right?
Yeah, sure.
So that is a big shock. That means that you made like consistent sum, like let's say just a few $1 billion a year profit, but it's just like in the single digit profit margin, which is just reasonable. Because you also take a lot of risk and you have to be compensated for that, especially as an investor. And this is what the story is about. Because now, that is Corona. Now the sentiment, let's say, from 2015 to 2020, was that around 2015, 2016, we had the Paris climate, and we said, okay, as a world, we need to get rid of fossil fuels. And that was almost the new religion. And we went not even as far as to say to our own big companies, so our big oil and gas suppliers, like the companies we're talking about, but we were also, and especially the American president was going to like Dubai, but also some Arab states, and say to those oil-producing countries, hey, you should take environmental consequences, or how you say it, like the consequences of your drillings into account, right? You need to be more responsible for the environment. That's just the easy way to say it. So what we did is say, okay, not only do we as a Western world want to say we want no more fossil fuels, but we were also aware of the fact that in the end global warming is global. So if you stop producing or using oil or fossil fuels for that matter in one place of the world, then because there is no more demand for it, the price will decrease, and so it becomes increasingly interesting due to the lower price for other places in the world which also have a lack of new energy infrastructure to buy those old fossil fuels and use it.
Especially developing countries.
Exactly. And so then you would have nothing. You would have achieved nothing, right? And so that is why we thought, okay, we have to make it big. Not only our companies, but also our companies are multinational, global players. We will make sure that our global players, will get rid of fossil fuels, and we will make sure and incentivize other big oil producing countries to do exactly the same. So that is what happened. I mean, that is really important to take into account, because this is what, and I'm not saying what path we should take. I'm just saying what like the information is.
Yeah, take it into consideration.
Exactly, because this is something that any Arab country that you will hear about now increasing, as when Western countries are saying, hey, you have to give us gas and oil and you have to produce more and more. Every time any Arab leader will say, shut up, because you were coming to our country to tell us that we should stop drilling, and now you're asking to produce even more. What do you want? Make a choice, and that is especially what you saw happening. A few big leaders that say, okay, especially the Western world leaders should stop being such hypocrites, because they are telling me in private conversation that they know that we can rule out fossil fuels so fast, but they are asking me to do it publicly, while they know that it doesn't work that way. So there was a lot of like frustrations in that manner. So this is important. Then Corona came. Then you had like an enormous decrease in demand. That was so extensively of oil. The decrease was so big that oil price became negative. That means that if you are buying oil, you get money to buy that oil.
Which is ridiculous.
Which means that there is so much oil that the cost of storing that oil costs more than just giving it away. And then you know how much oil there is. And also the lack of demand and the change. So you have first the sentiment from 2015 to 2020. Then you get like negative oil prices. Then you get the reopening of our economies, you get the opening of economies is the opposite of closing your economies. That means that there's more demand for your oil. That's happening, you're growing, and then Ukraine, the war in Ukraine starts. You want to sanction Russia, sanction one of the biggest fossil fuels exporters to Europe in winter times. That is what you did.
Yeah.
That is also why Putin told us 6 months ago, if you really are going to do this, I will call it a bluff, because if you truly do this, you will go in a recession. We said, no, we will not. And that is what you just said yourself. So, super interesting, because...
I had definitely not puzzled it all together like you have, so I'm very grateful that you mentioned all that.
Okay, great. So I'm almost done, because I just wanted to make then the last point that because then we wanted to sanction Russia and find alternatives for those fossils, that we then went back to Qatar and other gas, oil and gas producing exporters, even, you could say, took the far-reaching measure of going to a Qatar World Cup with like human rights abuses and stuff like that, because the urge for the energy crisis is so big. So you can see what
buddy with the Qatari.
and it was 2018 that the American president Joe Biden told the world that the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia would not get away with the murder on Khashoggi, which now 4 years later, when and also America, is in need for big oil, are willing to sacrifice free speech, because that is what you do. You're not only spitting in the faces of the relatives of Khashoggi, but you are deteriorating the value and the presence of free speech in general. And also we can be very pessimistic about that. Again, and that is indeed the bigger point I'm trying to make. Sometimes you have to choose between two things that are just bad, and then you choose the least
evils.
Yeah, right. That is what you do. And I would rather have a warm home and not speak freely than I have no head above my head but can speak freely. So there you go, right? It's just always a list of priorities. And that is the bigger point I'm trying to make, because I'm answering, or really try to come back at you and say, okay, if we take all those things into account, now you are in a situation where Shell, the big oil companies in the Western world, are doing business. They are doing business in an environment in which all those things are happening. So, stop fossil fuels. Stop. No, we need you. Stop. We need you. Okay. So it's like
sounds like a toxic relationship.
It's no, exactly. But that is what it is. And now you will see, especially what will happen with your girlfriend, is your oil companies are your ex-girlfriend who is just mad at you that you didn't give her enough attention, and now
didn't value her for what she was worth.
Exactly. And now she's saying, if you can't give me my attention, I will get it someone else. And that is exactly what is happening. So now the big oil companies are saying, okay, we make profit. We see that a lot of people want us, right? And now there are some other people saying, we don't think it's super fair that you are making yourself more interesting by giving and selling dividends and strengthening your balance sheet. You should give money back to the people. Right? So you have some guy who is saying that and saying, yeah, how is it even possible that those companies are making such big money and they're not giving back to the people and power to the people and stuff like that. But you don't get then the full story because it's much broader than that. And let's turn it around, because I can also see why this is not your ideal situation. But let's turn it around and say, what would you do? What would you do if you were the boss of Shell? You are in a situation where now there is a lot of demand for your oil. There will be even more demand for your oil the coming months, because China has now lockdowns, and the moment they stop with the lockdowns, their economies will open and they will even have a bigger influx of oil because they need it for the economies even more than we do, because they have less alternatives and a bigger economy.
Fair.
Right? So what would you do? So I am an investor. I'm going for Shell because I see, okay, you're making profits right now, and you're telling me I will make sure that the coming years I will make profit. Okay. Now, the US president is telling you have to remember, I as an investor have invested in your company. You are the manager. If you are not acting in my interest, I can sue you. And again, that is criminal charges that can get you. Okay, so you know what my power is. Now,
I am by law obliged to make profit because you have a stake in me making profit.
You are by law obligated to create shareholder value.
Great.
And if you don't, then I as a shareholder can sue you for the fact that you're not doing that. That's exactly what is happening now with Elon Musk and some old Tesla holders. They say that due to Elon Musk's activity with Twitter and the fact that he is working a lot of hours there, so what will shorten his attention span, but also that he took some autopilot engineers from Tesla to work on the source code of Twitter, all that stuff. They say we as a shareholder of Tesla get our interest got conflicted by Elon Musk, and he as a manager is responsible to act in a way that is beneficial, not only beneficial, but is maximizing shareholder value. And I can prove that by even working 1 minute on Twitter or even thinking about acquiring Twitter, you are not maximizing my profit for Tesla. You are not. And you can argue that, and believe me, they are. I mean, Musk is a rich and powerful man. You don't sue him if you don't really think that you can get something out. And I bet my money on it that I'm not thinking that one judge is just saying, okay, Musk, you have to pay a lot of money to them, because that would also be because you can then take it to the extremes, right? But what a judge will say is at least maybe say, okay, there is, because I don't want to dive too deep into it, there is some argumentation and there's some framework to say, okay, this is the endeavors you at least have to take, and then you can have a discussion about your measures and okay, but
I take the point.
Yeah, right. But now, my question for you would be, let's turn it around and say, okay, now what would you as the top man of Shell do if I as an investor have invested your money, which means you have to really create as much shareholder value as you can, and now the US president is telling to you, Tom, where is your moral compass? Where are you? Don't you see people? Do I need to show you an article of someone dying because they can't turn on the heat? What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? And now, what do you reply? You go ahead.
So, what I would do, firstly, I would really struggle to keep my laugh contained. Secondly, great presentation. Thirdly, I would make a commercial in where I would show you how much it would cost to build, let's say, a solar factory where you produce a lot of solar power, and show you how it's only possible to build that with fossil fuels.
That is a real fair assessment, I think.
Thank you. I thought long and hard about it.
Yeah.
You gave me a lot of time to think it through, so I hope it's somewhat acceptable.
I wanted to say up to standards, but
that's even
not.
better. Yeah.
Okay.
No. So but indeed, given all the information or taking all the information you've just given me, and I think you laid it out fantastically. So kudos to you for that.
Thanks.
I indeed, I used to want to dream of the idea that indeed we have to get rid of fossil fuels and we are going to kill the planet so fast that we can do nothing to stop it, and we have to make that turnover immediately. But once you start learning more and more about it and get into the bigger picture of it all, you can just see how many flaws there are in that plan. And especially when you take into consideration developing countries, you can take almost the entirety of Africa. If you tell them to right now build a booming economy, but if you touch coal or oil, then we will just take it away from you. Yeah, it's going to take at least 2 decades longer for them to get it done, because it's just the easiest way to quickly produce a lot of energy cheaply, and that is something that people are refusing to acknowledge. And you got these rose-colored glasses on the common civilian, and I don't blame them, because the agenda has been pushed so incredibly hard. I think your idea, I don't even care if it's true, but it speaks in so many depths, because just the idea works. Politician behind the back of a Qatari is saying, yes, okay, we need your oil, and we really need it bad, because otherwise we can't keep our people warm, and we really need it. We'll pay more than it's actually worth, because we kind of messed up here. But the front saying, no, you really shouldn't be using oil, and publicly outcry, and we should all move towards a more modern, healthier planet. I think it's the idea itself that is so inherently true. Yeah. So I think that is just something that has to become more widespread knowledge, because once we start realizing and accepting that fact, then we can look towards a more reasonable solution. Because just pushing this idea on everybody and making everybody feel guilty and scared of the climate changing and the potential dangers of that, we are this deep already. It's better to look at how is it standing right now, and what is logical, and what can we most effectively spend our funds on to create a better world. And then when everything is set up properly, once we are in a steady position, then we can look into alternatives. But right now, the field of energy, solar, radiation, nuclear energy, it is growing incredibly fast, and there's new, seriously cool, groundbreaking discoveries within every decade. So perhaps in 2-3 decades there is something so revolutionary that is found in Africa, because they use fossil fuels and got a brand new facility set up, that they find a new methodology. But then we have to give them the tools to get there, and saying, okay, yes, we as starting of Europe, modern Western world, and America as well, got all the advantages of steam, coal, oil, and took and used that to our max advantage to grow as quickly as possible. Had an industrial revolution, and saying, Africa, no, don't touch it. It's not for you. It's a ridiculous idea.
Yeah,
it's stupid. So,
but that is indeed a good point. But that is also taken into account, right? So developing countries can use coal, but not to the same degree. But it's like making level playing fields. Same with the intermezzo we had last week about China and opening the markets, right? Yeah. Because then you also say, okay, you can use and do.
Make it fair.
Make it fair, right? So level the playing field. But the thing is, and I think it's quite interesting to that you are almost in a point where you cannot go back, but you can also not go further. You are almost in a sort of steady state. You are not able to move because you cannot grow as an oil company, and that is what the US president wants you to invest the money you have just made into business to produce more oil. But then in a few years, every dollar I'm investing in my oil business no investor is allowed to invest in my companies in a few years, and no consumers are allowed to buy my products. So you are asking me to invest in something in which you are not allowing people to buy my goods. Right? Just why should I invest in something which you say you cannot buy those products in a few years? So you are asking me to invest in something which I cannot sell. And then you can get the reasoning behind those managers and say, okay, yeah, let's even go to alternatives, invest in alternatives, but that's it. And a lot of big companies cannot do much more because they, in those 5-year time frame I just told you, they had to sell a lot of assets. So Saudi Arabia and especially Saudi Aramco, with a lot of other like international oil exporters, and especially also some Indian Tata also bought some just assets. They were on fire sale. There's just a Financial Times article, I think 2020, in the summer of 2021, just saying like we have 350 billion worth of oil and gas assets just on fire sale. No one in the Western world wants them because of the dynamics I just explained. So the only ones buying them were the Arabs, and now they bought all those assets, invested much more. Yeah, and as a Western, as a Shell BP, that you can never compete with them. You just sold, almost give for free your most valuable assets to them, and now the own president is saying, yeah, you made a shitload of money this year, invested in those assets you just have sold. Right. No, I'm going to do another kind of business. And then the American president is getting mad and saying, yeah, you are oil and gas company, and now you're making hydrogen. How can you do that? Yeah, because of this. So it's like a whole dynamic, and yeah, you can have your own opinion about it, but in the end, it's quite rational. And if it's then fair or not, that is not maybe up to us to say and conclude, but it is reasonable. Every person that is thinking in a logical manner will follow this and can therefore not say you are bad and you are good. It's just like really strange that you have this as an objective, that this is the way you're walking, and you didn't take into account that there could be a disruption in your gas supplies from Russia due to a war, or right? It is just a lack of measures to lower your risks. Yeah, and that is what we didn't do, and that is what we are paying a price for now. But yeah, you can be mad at the oil companies for the business they are conducting or whatever. But in the end, if we had taken the right measures to shield ourselves from those risks, then whatever those oil and gas companies would have done would not really have made a big difference for us, in a sense that we would not have been in an energy crisis and a recession. So it's like a policy thing, and the fact that you made a lot of mistakes in your policies is then easy to almost put the light on someone else, right? And say, but look at those companies making a lot of money and not giving back. It's like so dumb and so easy.
Yeah, no, it is very easy. I think that's the better word of describing it, because it's just simple. It's simple. It's refusing to delve into depths about why it would be. And I mean, I've thought about it to a relative extent, but and I'm hesitant to judge it too harshly, because I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But I think because of the way you've been able to lay it out and get everything in this quite wide open scope, if you still fail to realize just how logical it is in a sense, then you're just refusing to listen. Then you've got your ideology. You believe this is what it is because it can't be anything else, because you're going into a victim mode mentality, and then you're refusing to listen. But if you listen to you explaining it and you still don't agree with it, you haven't listened.
It is interesting, because you almost have a feeling that some people, and it is like this in relation to the other things I wanted to discuss with you today, that some people indeed are mad that we're not living in a utopia.
And that's a good way of phrasing it.
And then my first question would be, who has ever told you that you're living in a utopia? Or that you're going to live in a utopia? I mean, who told you that? I know no one, and especially not the parents of anyone, who would say that to the child. So I'm just like, I'm sorry that you feel like, that you feel like someone is selling you short.
Feel entitled.
Feel entitled, indeed, that is the word, but no one had in the first place tell you that you would have a title, right? It's just like that, poorly phrased then. But despite that, I wanted to talk a little bit about, maybe take the utopia feeling as a starting point and say, do you feel that the fact that we just described that maybe some markets aren't functioning well, or maybe that is something we maybe didn't go into detail about, but that's for another thing, another episode, to say, okay, to what extent markets cannot function well, but that is something different than not having the result that you want, right? Those are two different things. But ideally you want them to converge. How the market functions should be in a way that suits your goal. I think that's a fair assessment, right? So what I wanted to ask you is, like, we have maybe just said and see that the results are not is not maybe something we should strive for, not something we really want, but we can understand how we come there, right? But, and especially maybe in relation to the first discussion that we had, do you think that the fact that maybe some markets aren't functioning well and the extreme things that you see on those markets, do you think maybe that could be symbolic for how emotion-driven we act and think?
How emotion-driven we act and think? Well, we do be doing that. Can you phrase it slightly different and ask me one more time? I know I'm asking a lot of you right now, but I want to give you a proper answer.
I will do differently. I will take you on my take. Let's have a discussion about it.
Cool, perfect.
Yes. Okay. So I will give you my take, and I'm just curious how what your opinion about it is. So I would say that sometimes the way markets are functioning are symbolic for how emotionally driven we are. So it's almost a rhetoric question, and that is because I think you could argue that for different markets and the fact that asset prices and a lot of things that are happening can be explained by maybe some events, and I think that's fair. But what I do think is, especially I like to follow Tesla and especially Tesla's stock performance, and then I can see that you have Tesla is an amplifier for what happens in the world. So if people are feeling optimistic, Tesla is even feeling more optimistic. If the world is feeling bad, Tesla is even feeling worse. And it is not Tesla as a company, but of course the people that are investing in Tesla. And I think that you can see the emotion. So when I said to people, I think Tesla is undervalued, then you got a point in which Tesla would increase, but would increase not by 100, 200%, but by 1,000% in a few months. Where like the previous 6 years, no one cared. And then you get a jump of 1,000. You say, huh? But now it's overvalued. And then people are down. So I would say the billion and what we were overvalued. I would say 500, 600 is fair. Yeah, and now you're probably now going back to maybe 200, 300. Well, you again think like, how can you do this? How can you be almost so stupid to I mean, it's hard to really value information for the face value that it has, but to amplify things by a factor of 3 is like sick. Now, okay, but I wanted to broaden it, because this is indeed, that's also my thing, right? I like that, the financials and stuff like that, but I wanted to take it more broadly, and therefore I thought it was useful for you not to be as invested, in the sense of already knowing what you really wanted to say, or really did your research on it and find maybe some other arguments, but really came with like a fresh mind, right? And speak your mind. And so, you can reply afterwards, and if you feel so, you feel free to interrupt. But I will take you in my broader assessment, almost. So I would say that indeed it is, how markets are functioning is indeed symbolic for how emotionally driven we act and think. But the fact that it's not based on facts, but that we even having discussions about what factual facts are, with arguments that are based upon emotions, showcases, for me a lot. And for me, I would almost say, and go as far as saying that that this emotion, or is like a representation, or almost a scream for a sort of an identity. Then I would define an identity as like a person or a vision that knows what it wants, why it wants it, and how it's going to get it. In the most basic, fundamental form, right? And then I would say, or I would pose the question, okay, then how come the world is fairer than ever, but it looks like we're feeling worse than ever? And especially taking into account that the past 75 years of prosperity were an exception on the rule of terror, genocide, and war, of all the other places and time frames that we know of history, right? And I do think that you have an opinion about it, so I'm quite curious what it is. Could the lack of identity also be a reason why religion is quite prevalent again? And so we have seen a decreasing trend of influence of religion almost the past 40 years in the Western world, maybe even more. But now we do see an increasing trend of at least people informing about religion or spirituality. And to what extent do you think the trend of seeking information about religion and spirituality can be contributed to the search for an identity?
I think because of that last point, I've finally been able to connect my mind to it. So I'm so glad you went first, because I would have not gone any of that without it. So, okay. So I'm gonna do backwash. I'm gonna go back to front, starting with the religion part, which really tickled my fancy.
Great.
So, okay. I think definitely a lot of people nowadays are looking for meaning, especially. And I think in the more modern age, the more modern we get, it used to just be quite simple. I think life got more, not difficult in a sense, but it got a lot less clear what a life was supposed to be like, how you were supposed to live it, what was expected of you, how you had to contribute to society. I think it used to be more, you're a man, you have to provide, you have to work hard, even if it's a job you don't really like. You do your well, it was probably like an 8 to 6 back then, if not more. You took care of your wife and your kids. Wife stayed at home. That was kind of the dynamic, at least in the Western world. and you can go back as far as you want, but the roles were pretty clearly defined, and the way your life was supposed to be, what society expected of you, was also quite clear. I think the more modern our society got and the more wealth was created, the more opportunities arose, and the less clear it was for people what was meant for them, the meaning in their life. I think religion plays a big part in that, and in that religion was a huge part in our past, in how our life was supposed to be led. You're supposed to go to church every Sunday, and you were supposed to pray, you were supposed to be a man of God, and have no sex, premarital sex, etc. Well, that idea has dissolved in a lot of society. Of course, a lot of people, plenty of people still preach it. However, what is showcased is that a lot of people that are religious tend to have their religion as quite a big part of their personality, and base a lot of their ideas and where they come from on their religious presuppositions. Now, I think it would make sense for especially people that don't know what they want with their life, and I think a lot of people around the ages of 18 to 25 up to 30, let's just put it in that range there, right there, don't really know what they want to do with their life, and they're looking for meaning and are looking for what is meant for them. I think for those people, something such as religion would definitely make a lot of sense to find appealing, because I've also had a point in my life where I was raised quite atheistic, agnostic, and my mother was raised Christian, but she let go of her faith and explained to me in some detail why she made that decision, and for her it just didn't make any sense. But I always thought it was at least an interesting topic, right? It's something so many people strongly believe. It has some certain values that would seem arbitrary without the Bible or the Quran or whatever it could be. So it's an interesting idea, right? Why do you live by all these rules? Why is it so important to you? So I did a little bit of research on it myself and found some things about religion and perhaps Buddhism, and it struck me as interesting, but I never really felt compelled into the faith myself. However, then a very wonderful man by the name of Jordan Peterson came along, and he showed me not perhaps the religious aspect of religion, which sounds a bit strange, but more the meaning that could be obtained from studying things such as the Bible or the religious texts or the behaviors that are found in Christianity. So that I thought was super interesting, and that allowed me to take it apart a bit more and view it from a perspective of like, okay, it's not just really apologize. It's not, because this was my view when I was younger. It's not just a cult that people believe in, that they were raised with, and this is just what they're forced to believe, and it's almost like brainwashing. I was a lot more understanding and getting the value of it because of that. So that is the part of, okay, meaning, religion, why people are interested to it, why people can gravitate it, and perhaps also why some extremist religion is able to be found. Because if you are perhaps from a country that has been bombed to shreds, let's say, and you are completely lacking of meaning, all you know is that you have your Quran, and you have lost the ability to go to school, you have lost your friends, you have lost family, and all you know is that you are constantly being terrorized. I would not blame you in the slightest if that. Slightest is perhaps going a bit far, but I understand your reasoning why you would say, okay, the best thing can do, the most meaning that my life can have is if I die in one final brave act in front of God, Allah, for them. Makes a lot more sense in that picture, I would say. Coming back to the idea of, okay, is emotion influencing the markets? I think, and that's a point that you haven't made, which I thought was very interesting, is that you have a lot of people that do impulse buys. So what people that perhaps have a little bit too much money do is they go on the internet and they buy a bunch of stuff, or they see something that they don't really have the money to afford, but if they push it, they can maybe get it. They buy those things because they feel like it will build on their identity, it will give them meaning, it will make them that person. They think they need that jacket to be the cool guy, they need the TV to be the rich guy, they need the big apartment to show that they got it going on, they need the super cutest, smallest dog to show that they bred the best dog, whatever. You can make it as crazy as you want, right? But it's the idea of that you need some external factor for meaning within. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just, and it's getting a bit philosophical now, but the idea that if you look within, all the meaning in your life can be found. I think that holds true, but
yeah,
please,
I agree.
Question it if you don't. But because of that, I do think that a lot of emotion runs the market, and indeed, I really liked your sentence where you said we use arguments based on emotion to diffuse why arguments are incorrect, right? And I see plenty of TikToks, I wish I didn't, the app is incredibly addicting, that you see people. For example, that's a quick example would be invest in this crypto now. It's like going down, or look at this NFT. It's like super low right now. It's gonna blow up. And then the crazy part is because they make that video, it gets attention, it gets traffic. There's enough people that are like, okay, whatever. I got a few bucks laying around. I don't mind spending it. That a lot of people buy into it, and then actually something happens, right? Boom, filled with emotion, major burst, and there you can see that. Because a lot of people want to believe it, that they sometimes make it happen, or that because of that emotion that is imbued within it, they will make the market change in some way, whether it's positive or negatively affecting them. That is irrelevant for this case, but it does show that the idea that people have with it really makes a big difference. And I think one great idea would be I think Game Mania, was it? The GameStop. With a Reddit, I can tell you that most of the people that were planning to follow the plan that was set into action there were not doing it to make money. They were doing it because I love the idea of messing with the big guys. Yeah. I was like flipping a bird to the system, and that created so much excitement for them. It feels like the little man finally fighting back the big guys, right? Massive market explosion, and then of course we all know what happened. A lot of people got very rich, so a lot of people also lost a lot of money, right? There's two sides to every coin. But it does show you that indeed, I think it's, of course, it's partly human connection and ideals, but definitely emotion makes a huge difference on the market. I think it probably steers it to a large degree, because I mean the idea of the oil alone is because we got the idea of climate change and save the turtles, and we gotta do all these things to make our planet better. It gives everybody like a small little warm fuzzy feeling in their stomach, and burning big fossil fuels, getting poisonous stuff in our air makes everybody like, maybe we shouldn't do that. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's not inherently wanting to say, okay, let's burn some fuel and make the air we breathe less breathable. Yeah, nobody wants that. You're not smart for figuring that out, right? But you have to look beyond that, and you have to sometimes, if you let every action you have be guided by emotions, then you are just a leaf being blown by the wind.
Yeah.
Right. And
beautiful. Wow.
Right. So brings it back to the whole point of you have to look inward for that meaning, and you have to critically think beyond the basic idea that is put in front of you.
That is I completely agree. So great. I think you made a great point. You put it. Now you gave it. Of course I completely agree with the markets part, but I indeed didn't came up with it myself. So I think that's a great addition. To not fill in the answer on the follow-up question. I do agree that looking into oneself is necessary to find true happiness. I think that is like, maybe happiness is not the word.
I like contentness.
Contentness, better maybe, and maybe also that you just have a feeling of satisfaction. That you are in peace with yourself.
Yeah.
Whatever that then is. But at least that it is not that your happiness, contentness, whatever it is not dependent on external factors. Right? That is in essence also, I think, the beginning of Buddhism.
Yeah.
Which you said it yourself. So maybe it is not that of a new question, but I still want to pose it to you. Do you think religion on itself is comprehensive enough to satisfy the identity crisis?
No.
And why not?
There's one clear case example that I can give you that I hope will cover it completely, because it would be funny if it did. So there was one point in my life I was quite a bit younger, and I definitely don't blame the guy, because this was also how I was raised. So the reasoning makes sense from his perspective, perhaps. But he said, the Bible teaches me I shouldn't steal, I shouldn't kill, I shouldn't do all these things, right? And it makes me a better person. So he said, because you are not religious, you might do all those things. So my immediate response, which he did not see coming, of course, was, I don't need a Bible to get me to stop or not do those things. I have my own sense of morality and ethics, right?
So, I'm my own God.
Yeah. Well, that's a topic for another episode. But
great.
That's gonna confuse some people, perhaps. But it kind of shows, perhaps gives the idea, or let it be known that sometimes, and I think perhaps more than sometimes, a person that is very strongly religious takes the ideas that it's given by its faith and sees them as nothing but true, and doesn't see the flaws that it brings, that your personal growth and your religion can definitely be intertwined, but you also have to see the separation in it as well. If you can't see them separately, then you are unable to keep your ideology from your reality. And of course they intermingle and they intertwine, because it is your reality in a sense, but you need to be able to keep the two apart, at least at some points, because otherwise you will view everything from that lens, and your vision will become distorted.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And you can even go as far as saying, if your religion is more than your personality, so you derive your personality out of your religion, then it's not really worth living, right? Because the religion still already lives, and you live to add something. But if you are just even less than your religion, what is the value in living then? What you're worth living for?
Yeah, exactly. And indeed, I think a lot of people that are religious place a lot of value on being the best possible follower of your religion and following all the rules as closely as possible. However, and this is in the Bible, I believe, so it is perhaps a bit one-sided, but I think the argument still holds for whatever religion you may follow, is that, I got this from GP. He says in one of the earliest chapters, there's the story of a man. I think it's Jacob. No, it's not Jacob. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, he is in a bit of a struggle and he ends up wrestling with God. And what happens? God takes his arm and he gets a bit scuffed up, but he wins. He beats God in a fight. And because of that, he is named Israel, which literally translates to he who wrestles with God and wins, which is the idea that you should struggle with your faith. You should question the ideas. You shouldn't just follow them blindly. You should look into them, question them, figure out what they mean, look at the deeper meanings, and not just take his word for it. Because what it means to truly follow a faith is to be able, to truly have an idea at all, I would say, is to be able to counter your own argument and still believe that yours holds true. Because if you can attack it from every side and still believe, no, but even if I take all those things into consideration, I still believe this is the truth, that is to truly believe something. And I believe if you want to claim that you are someone that believes in a God or believes in a faith, and if you don't do that, then you're not truly believing in it. You're just blindly following it.
I completely agree.
Right?
Yeah, I couldn't say it better myself. So no, this is great. My follow-up would be, and I would say that gives you the possibility to maybe elaborate on the joke I just made about your God, but you are free to do so how you want. And my question would be, do you think maybe we need a new kind of religion or something else to fill in that gap?
Well, I wouldn't say religion per se.
No, or something else.
Yeah, no. So I would say that a lot of people feel misguided and are lacking a sense of meaning and direction in their life. And definitely there is, I think that is also probably one of the more prominent reasons why there's characters such as Andrew Tate that are gaining a lot of traction and momentum, is because people are looking for somebody to look up to guide them. And I think is especially prevalent in young men. And there's a lot of examples for women and young women. I wouldn't say they're the best examples. So because there's just a lot of issues going around with mental health and body positivity among women, and especially the role models given to women. So definitely I think there's lack of that, and for me that has been Jordan Peterson. And I would not tell anybody to go look at him and just follow his ideas, and everybody should do what he is doing, but he has been able to steer me in that direction of, okay, I'm lacking meaning in my life, or I'm struggling to find out what I want from my life, or trying to have a bit more clarity. He's been able to guide me quite well in that direction, and he's been a very powerful figure in that he does the things with the biblical lectures, which I mentioned beforehand, which were incredibly helpful. But he also has a lot to say about how you should structure your life, what you should strive for, and some ideas that I found very powerful for myself. So I do believe there's definitely some strength to that, and I think it varies for everybody who they want to listen to and what ideas they should follow. But I think there's some value for everybody in Jordan Peterson. But that's my take on it. And to elaborate a little bit on the "you are your own God" thing, this is not something I have from him. He has a bit of a different take on it, which I've also adopted to some degree. But my ideology, Jordan Peterson, apologies. My ideology or my idea has been for a while now is that anything you can conjure up, which you truly believes in your grasp, what you think you can do, right? If you believe that you can do it, but you just need to do all these things for it. If you do all these things, you can do it. Of course, you can't say, okay, I really want to fly, and if I jump out the window and I really believe it, I can fly. No, of course. You have to stay realistic to a certain degree, but if you believe you can be super famous or super successful as a businessman, you figure out what exactly you want to do, and you work towards all the steps that are necessary for you to get in such a position. I believe that everybody can do it. I believe that if you stay realistic, but set incredibly high goals, you really work hard for them, it's possible. And in that sense, I would say almost, of course not exactly, you are your own God, in the sense that you create your own future. And if you truly believe something, you can, I hate using this word, manifest it into something real. Because dreams are dreams until you work hard enough for them to be real. And I think, one of the greatest examples of this right now in our modern age is Elon Musk, because he had some crazy ideas and everybody was like, you're just stupid for even attempting it, and now running some of the most successful businesses on the planet, and most recognized, I should say. Anything else you wanted to add to that list?
Yeah, fortune favors the bold.
Yeah, exactly. Fortune favors the bold. Great. So, I think indeed that is something that we should attain and or aim for. And I think for everybody, indeed, look inwards, find what you really want, which is tough enough on its own. But just, I would say, do as much as you can until you figure out something that sticks. Even if it's not the thing you end up with, I hear that it rarely is. It can at least set you on a path to try something, and if that doesn't work, you've at least tried something. But trying nothing is not going to get you anywhere either. But don't be scared to aim high, because insane things are possible if you put your mind to it. And that is what I would give everybody as advice. And I think the one last thing that I want to add to that is, so your question really was, are we in need of something else to perhaps replace religion, or do we need a new one? I think
that to solve the identity.
Sure, solve the identity crisis. One thing that I feel like is missing, and that is just almost gone from our society, and I don't really understand why, is mentors, right? I think it's so lacking to see somebody being properly mentored, being properly raised, and in that regard. And I think a mentor is such a powerful role that a lot of people are dying for in their life. We have internships, but I doubt many interns, or a large percent of interns, will say, yeah, he was really my mentor. He taught me everything. He took me under his wing, and he really showed me the ropes, and I could always come to him if I needed help. Please show me how much percent that is. I think it would be an interesting study. So yeah, I think that is one big thing, and that is, I think, perhaps also why Jordan Peterson stood out to me so much, is because he has that mentor-ish feeling for me. So yeah, I hope some other people can find a mentor that fits them as well, or perhaps we could share the same one. I am a bit stingy though, so I'm not a fan of sharing, but I'll manage.
No, but I mean, you make a joke about it, but to not sell yourself short, I do think that is a great point you're making. I do think and agree that mentors is maybe one of the most important things, and the things we lack the most of. I myself cannot give a handful of examples for people that I really look up to, which is quite interesting for someone who's 25, his early 20s. You would expect that would be the answer of someone who's in his 40s or 50s, right? I have a few maybe, but I've achieved myself quite a lot, right?
Yeah.
But to be like a young man then in this world, and to say, maybe a Musk, but even if I look at a Musk, if I look personally, but this is on a personal note, how I think he has a good heart in the sense of doing the best for the most humans around him, in combination with his skills. And then if you look at what he accomplishes, but also everything that he needs to deal with on a negative note, I'm not sure if I would define that endeavor as a net positive investment.
You would say, you correct me if I'm wrong, but you look at Elon Musk and like, it's admirable, but I wouldn't want to live that life, or?
Yeah, in the sense of that, I do not think that the good person that he is being valued by the comments that he gets. So I don't think it's, in that sense, a profitable endeavor from a perspective of Elon Musk to do the things that he does. Because, I mean, how would you feel if you... I would rather not have people having an opinion about me than to say that I want people to go right, while in reality I want them to go left. Right? And it's not like, of course, for Musk, I think, like, the majority of people of comments is positive, right? But imagine that more than 50% would be comments about telling the world you want to change it for the better, but producing batteries that cost more than an ICE car ever would in its lifetime. If you would receive comments like that constantly, then what incentive do you have to do the best, right? And of course you can say you do the best to do the best and not to acknowledge to be the best, but I do think that is partly the reason why we have so few mentors. Because being a mentor is also, it's exactly the same trade-off. It's about, okay, I can mentor you, but again, I'm the CEO of Shell. Now you can ask to the normal people on the streets, do you want to be mentored by the CEO of Shell? 20 years ago, that percentage would be, I think, a factor of at least 10 times higher than it would be right now. 10 years ago, people would say that is amazing. He can learn me something, and maybe I don't agree with everything he's doing or saying. At least there is some part that I do think it's admirable or at least inspirational, and so that is something I can get or derive out of it. While now people would say the fact that let's say you are the mentor, that you are mentoring me, that people would advise me not to be mentored by you because you will you will influence my soul, right, on a manner that is not beneficial in no way. So then, the result is completely different. Indeed, you don't want to be mentored, and then the CEO of Shell could, in both cases, be even open to mentor other people, but the willingness of people to be mentored by him is just a big difference.
Yeah.
And so then the incentive, again, if you have like 1,000 people that wants your advice and you can just give it to one, you are more incentivized or inclined to do so than there is just like 2 people that want you and you have to give it to 1 or 2, or maybe there's 0. And I think so. I just wanted to say that I do think that it works both sides, right? I do think that's a great point. There's a lack of mentors, and it should be like super valuable. I think that's a great solution. But again, then that works only if we also can value a mentor. And if we cannot value a mentor, like we cannot define maybe
if we only demonize his mistake and cherry pick at all the things that they could have possibly done better, then
right.
Yeah.
So and that is maybe I maybe didn't phrase it that well, but for me it was like I followed Musk for a long time, right? And I was also there, not afterwards, but right there when it happened, when he smoked a joint on Joe Rogan. And of course now it's like
you were at the podcast.
It's like a meme, and but I know, and I have it really clearly in my mind that happened, and that I was like thinking, okay, could you imagine that maybe some people will be mad at this? And I could never imagine that so many people would have had an opinion about it. But if you think about it, the man who is able to fix all those things, and then you have like the whole world having an opinion about that. Well, they are all not in a position to do 1/10 of 1/100 of what Elon Musk did.
Yeah.
But you do have an opinion about it. And then even if you confront people with that and people are saying, yeah, but he's smoking weed and that is not something good. Then, and no one is saying to that guy, who are you to tell us?
Yeah.
Because I would rather be Elon Musk who smoke weed and have a Tesla and a SpaceX at my existence than I would have in the case of not smoking weed and being on Twitter hating on the number 1 dude of the world, right? So what is the point you're trying to make? And I do think that making sure that there are more mentors only happens when you do value the added value of the mentor. And the moment you don't value the added value of a mentor, then the mentor doesn't have an incentive to mentor you.
Yeah.
Because it always takes energy. And it is not like in your benefits. The one being mentored receives a lot of benefits.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you all the way here. However, I would add to that, and I think this is an unrealized fact by a lot of people that perhaps get retired or are at the end of their careers, is that, at least from what I've heard, of course I can't speak from personal experience, that it is incredibly valuable to somebody personally to be able to transfer your knowledge to somebody else, and to have a protege, and to see all the knowledge you've accumulated, all the experience, going to somebody younger, and then perhaps making it even better. I think that is one of the most rewarding things for somebody, and I think that's also ties into teachership and why it can be so valuable to someone. Yeah. But I 100% take your point, and I think indeed the people are very quick to cast stones and to lay judgment, especially at the people that
take risk.
Take the most risk and have the most value in the world, have the most money at their hands, and are the most influential in the world, because you think you should be able to be extremely critical of them because they have all the responsibility. Yes, but they are still just people, and if we're going to criticize all your flaws, right, we can be here a while, and at least they have done so much, they've put so much effort into creating something like very awe-inspiring and worthy of recognition, despite their character flaws, because everybody has them. But indeed, if we don't recognize that fact, and I'm not saying that we should never cast judgment, and that if Elon Musk does something that's despicable, then we should all just shut up about it. That is completely not what I'm saying. I am, however, saying that some things, like smoking a joint on a podcast, leave the man alone. Yeah. I mean, it is his life. What do you have to say about it, right? Yeah. Same thing with, I mean, I'm not a fan of him or anything, but if Jeff Bezos wants to go on a super yacht, let him go on a super yacht. He kind of earned it, don't you think?
Yeah, and to be honest, I do think that isn't even a distinction I want to make, because then I do agree with you, and in essence I agree, but I do think that it's important to make the distinction that the discussion with for example the Bezos and the yacht is more about how should value be distributed or so, while with Musk it's his own life. When he decides to smoke a joint at night at his home, no one would know, and now the man is doing that in a podcast, and now you're giving him shit. The incentive or the lesson learned here is to not be transparent and open. And isn't that the whole problem with the elitists everyone is complaining about?
Facts.
Right.
Facts. Bigger facts have never been spoken.
So that is what really annoys me with it.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I didn't actually think about it, so I'm so glad you said it, because I think it's a fantastic point.
Okay, great. So because to this end,
great.
So we talked a little bit new religion, something else. What should this religion stand for? I think you answered that quite extensively. I do have a short rant. I will really keep it short. And I want you to interrupt me or give your opinion about it. So, but no, that's funny. No. Okay, seriously. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about our role. And a question that I posed myself was, okay, to what extent are we ourselves responsible for the emptiness and therefore like the identity crisis? So, to what extent is our lack of willingness to take responsibility contributing to this emptiness? And this is partly inspired, of course, also of the things you just said, right? So to summarize this in just a few words, when we're talking about being your own God and find contentness inside, power to yourself, those are all one and the same, in the sense of that it is you as a person, as an individual in this world that holds a lot of power. It is you that can change the world, and it is also you who decides to take that responsibility or not. and by not taking responsibility, the consequence would be that you almost fall victim in life, right? And that is things or something which is a topic we have talked about in previous episodes, but like also a continuing topic, because it's like always in relation to responsibility. So let's talk about that. So to what extent is our lack of willingness to take responsibility contributing to this emptiness? And if you take then the mentor, that is almost like the answer to it. To what extent? The mentor is indeed is at least the extent to which, maybe even further, but at least the mentor did we do, because that is a responsibility that we could take. But I wanted to take and walk another path with you and see what you think about it. So let me start. There was a time in which we are living in the Netherlands, and we have like a president of. We don't have a president, but we call it the premier of our country, which is comparable to like a president, and that he is like the
head of state.
The head of state, thank you, and the leader of our nation. Also a seat in the European Union, and votes on behalf of the Netherlands on a lot of Europe-related policies. Now, there was a time a few years ago where there was a little bit of trouble, and as you know, but that is true for a lot of people that are working at companies. You sometimes have like a cell phone. Cell phones are in some way or another related to your work, to your company you're working for, and so you should use that phone only for working activities, not personal. It's less like a strict thing. Now, there was a point in which our second chamber has to control, like the head of state, the ruling parties, and make sure that what they are doing is within the boundaries of the law. Now, there was a debate about did they abide by the law and to what extent. And in like the heat of the moment, in the debate about the smoking gun, which our head of state was obligated by law to answer the question in the right way, that he decided to say, which is almost a meme here in the Netherlands, but I will translate it to English and say, I didn't have an active memory. And for a lot of maybe people of which English is a native language, that would say that is quite a strange sentence. Also in Dutch it is quite a strange sentence. I mean, in no language does this work. But let's go. So, it's one, not to remove a leader of a country when he seems incompetent. A lack of memory.
Biden.
Or malicious. Having a lack of memory when it suits you. But the real danger appears when people of a country take their leader as a prime example of how to function, as they ought to, when this leader's behavior should not be exemplified. So then when people are copying this behavior and you still do not remove the leader, you know for sure that your next leader will be even worse. And this is because the average voter will not select the best leader, as they simply cannot separate bad from good leaders. If they could, they would have removed the bad leader already. And the best leader will not promote himself because he knows that the average voter either cannot separate good from bad leadership or have a different opinion about what a good leader should do. My point is we believe in a system that's based upon a sort of natural selection, where the best will survive and sit in the best functions. And that like the bad ones will select themselves out, right? But this only works when there is like an accurate and an intense feedback system. And especially not having a well-functioning feedback system endangers the natural selection system and this can lead, even in the long run, to a reverse natural selection system. And that's what I want to talk to you about. And this, what does it mean, this reverse natural selection system? That is where the best leader will not even sign up for the competition. And whoever the voters choose is suboptimal. The real danger is that at a certain point, you cannot imagine how the world would look like if you would select the best leaders. But the moment you realize this, there is no coming back. As the leaders don't promote themselves, and the voters cannot imagine what a good leader could do, let alone believe them and vote on them. And then you're almost trapped.
Yeah, it feels scarily present, what you're describing.
Yeah?
Yeah, because I hate to want to say that I believe it, but I feel like we're almost there, if not already there, in a sense that there's even, you mentioned two really big problems, which is one, you cannot distinguish good from bad, good from a bad leader. You don't know how a good leader should act. And then we have a third, which I think is even worse, and I know that there is a plenty amount of people that do this. He's already had a decent amount of experience, so he probably knows how he should do it the best. Yeah.
I love that argument.
Yeah,
that is amazing.
Yeah. The worst part is, I was just having some casual talk with some people at work. It was a few years ago, and I asked, I was like, "Yeah, what did you guys vote for? Just curious, like no judgment. I'm just just want to hear your argument if you want to talk about it." And then one guy is like, he was like a shift leader, so he didn't really want to say it because it was like, oh yeah, it might have an influence on the other people working. So I was like, okay, fair, whatever. Close the door, let them wait for a little bit. So what did you do? So, yeah, just for the premier, the head of state you just talked about. I was like, but the thing is, he was like, yeah, just for like the head of state. He did it in like a whisper tone because he knew that he hadn't really thought about it. It was like, yeah, I think he did all right in the last few years. Yeah. No, you're just not willing to put in the effort to see how much better it could be, or willing to take that risk, right? And it's kind of the herd behavior. Like, okay, we've already had this. It's not the worst of the worst, and I'm scared it's gonna get even worse if we put somebody else in there. So just let them stay. It's really a scary thing that people think like that. But indeed, so I think I sometimes see a few clips of discussions being had, and I think there's definitely still hope because I see some promising people. But yeah, there has been a lot of things that just went wrong that everybody can agree that just should not have been handled the way it has been handled. Corona crisis is one of them. Living crisis is one of them. People can just point clear the study costs, another one. People can just point clearly and say, this should not have been done this way, period. Yeah. And you should rectify it. We are now seeing they are refusing to rectify it, at least to a certain extent. And my hope is that this recognition of we are in a state where things are getting bad and we are scared it's going to get worse, is going to push people to really think critically, and hopefully some great options will arise, because we are in desperate need of some. But then again, I have hope that there are some people that are passionate about politics and will get into it because they think they can genuinely make a difference. Yeah, indeed, as you said, the longer it goes on, the longer it's been a problem, and I think the problem has been going on too long, and the time for change is now. And in that sense, we want to take, I think this argument we've made before, just goes to show that it's great that it can be repeated, is that we should make the people in the politics take responsibility for their role and do it properly, which means we need to take responsibility in our voting and how we choose our leaders. I think it's a back and forth, right?
Yeah.
We cannot expect something of them without putting in something ourselves, and I think that's what it boils down to. And I think your story was very well put.
No, but I like your addition. I mean, I do think that is like that is a real smoking gun, right? So you have the power to change the world, and if you don't believe it, then don't expect other people to believe it. And maybe that is a little bit of a negative note. Let's make it more positive. You have the power to change it. Separates realize that you really can influence it in a positive manner, but that. Yeah, I'm struggling to find the right words, but that in the end, indeed, I think the fact that there is a two-way is the most important most important thing to note, because I do think that a lot of people think that it is the one way which gives them almost an incentive of a sort of feeling that they cannot change it, right? If you feel that the elite people are delegating and telling us how the world works, then you don't have really an incentive to change something in your life, make it also the smallest change, because in the end you feel like you are the one who is controlled. And so I do think that, and that is what I'm trying to say, that your addition, and especially the two-way and the responsibility that not only a politician of course has, but we as voters have as well. And I do think that explicitly naming the two-way dynamic is the most important note to take with you to improve for the future, because it is the two-way dynamic that is the feedback system. That is the whole feedback system. So, and especially when you say, I agree with the way you just described it. Then you also agree that the feedback is the most important thing. And on the feedback, we have, luckily feedback is the most important thing, because that is something we have power to. We can change. We are the one giving power. And I think that is what is going wrong, not believing in the two-way dynamic and also act upon it. I mean, if you talk to a random policeman, then he would say, when you say, hey, what you're doing right now is right if you look just at the letter of the law, but it's quite strange if you look at the societal welfare that it should generate. And then the policeman will tell you, but I'm not the one making the laws. And then we are normally done talking, and that is wrong, because then the discussion starts, and we should say to the policeman, hey, it's quite strange, you were just saying someone else is making the letter of the law, and I am willing, without having a discussion, to just fully implement the letter of the law. So if someone is writing, you should kill every child, you are killing every child, because that is what the law says. And then the policeman will say, no, that is too extreme. But when it's too extreme then? Is being lockdowns, when you have a worldwide, is that fair or not? And there you go. It is a constant, and that is what you were saying as well. So I think you are hitting the nail on its head. That is the most important part. The main takeaway, let's phrase it like that, to say and believe in the two-way dynamic, believe in the feedback system, because that is what already exists, make it more transparent and improve what we have. And if you are not willing to, or not truly believe in a two-way dynamic, then there is no feedback, and I think you should just agree that you indeed fall victim to certain things, but you are not truly a victim, you are a victim by construction.
Yeah, no, indeed. And I, just to add a little bit on top of that, I think, I hate that I'm going away back to him again, but just a brief example, one of the first things that Jordan Peterson preaches and what's also been memed about is clean your room. If you want to change the world and you really want to clean your room first. If you cannot even keep your own room clean, how do you think that you have a better idea of how the world should be handled than the elite of the elite, the top of the top, right?
Yeah.
First get that idea into your head. And then another one that he has preached quite a few times, which I think is very strong, and it ties exactly into the feedback system. Correct me if my math is wrong, because I'm not that good at math and you are a bit better. I think if you influence 100 people, and those 100 people influence 100 people, and those influence 100 people, after 7 people, you have 1 billion.
Yeah, more, you have 10 billion.
Great, even better. Right? Which is the population.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show that if you try and make the best possible solution for the people around you, and there's almost a guarantee that you will meet 100 people in your life, and if you make the most of all those moments and try to make the best version of yourself, have the best possible consequences outwards, and say you affect those 100 people just a little bit positively, that ripples out, that ripples out, that ripples out.
Yeah.
You've just made the entire world a better place, right?
Exactly.
And that feedback system like goes back and forth, so never for a second underestimate your reach and the responsibility that comes with that, because you have your own responsibility you carry, but you also have the responsibility of the entire world on your shoulders, and so does everybody else. And when we start to realize that, then can we make progress to truly changing the world. Because as an individual, you will not do it, but you are not an individual. You are part of a giant system.
Yeah, no, and that is truly important. The ripple effect. I'm glad you said it. Yeah, no, that is indeed that goes. But I think that is also what you meant, like in 2 ways that. Because of the ripple effect, you should take the responsibility. And if you are, you can see it in a positive light. If I'm contributing or making sure that I do one positive thing, then that will create more positive things. But it also goes the other way around. Namely, if you are not making sure you take your responsibility, then that will amplify. So it's just the ripple effect is an argument to make sure and be aware of the fact that the decisions that you make, positive or negative, taking responsibility or not, are amplified by the world in which you are living.
Exactly. Okay, well, I think that's a great note to end on. I hope everybody has been able to keep up and enjoy their episode. Please let us know, or respond to the question that I will think of and put in the Spotify. It would be great if you took the time to answer it. You are not obligated by law yet. So, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed. This has been Tom.
I'm Jala.
And as always, stay curious. See
ya. Bye.